Hi, welcome to the AIM on MS&T podcast. If this is your first time listening to our podcast, first off, welcome. We are happy to have you. Second, AIM stands for Academia, Industry, and Military, which are the main sectors that make up Central Florida's modeling, simulation, and training community. On our podcast, we talk with different leaders in the MS&T community. We also talk about all the cool and innovative things their organizations are doing, trends that affect the MS&T field as a whole, and keep you up to date with what's going on. If you're not a part of the modeling and simulation community, we hope to share some insights about this important sector of Orlando's economy, which ranks just behind the theme park and hospitality industries. I'm your host, Kate Finkel, and today we're talking to Sergeant Major Tom Dow. He is the Senior Enlisted Advisor for Program Executive Office Simulation, Training, and Instrumentation, also known as PEO STRI. Welcome to the podcast. First off, you happen to be the first enlisted person we've had on our podcast, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Now, I'm curious about your Army history. Can you tell our audience how long you've served in uniform, what made you decide to join the Army, and how did your path lead you to where you are now at PEO STRI?
So why I joined the Army, I was at home in the early 90s working a job, and I didn't see it going anywhere. And the Army slogan at that point was, be all you can be. Mm-hmm. And I decided, all right, I'm going to give this a try. So I went to the recruiter, and they wanted me to do communications type stuff.
Okay.
And I wanted to jump out airplanes as well as join the Army. And they told me I couldn't do that and do communications. So that's how I wound up in the infantry and doing infantry things for the last 28 years. And so my path in the Army has been pretty robust. I've been all over the place from CONUS to OCONUS locations and served in every leadership position in the infantry world that I can think of through Brigade Sergeant Major.
Our audience is very familiar with PEO STRI and the PEO STRI mission, as we were fortunate enough to have General Beeler on the podcast earlier this year. But I don't think our audience is familiar with your role at PEO STRI. Can you tell us what a Senior Enlisted Advisor does and what your typical day looks like?
Okay, so first of all, the Senior Enlisted Advisor is the principal advisor to the commander, or the PEO in this case. So I'm her advisor, as well as the deputy. And then I also interact frequently with all of the PMs and the PDMs, so the 06 and 05 level, routinely about program stuff, things that are going on, challenges they might be having, anything like that, and kind of help the organization. I look for blind spots that the leaders might have, and then I try to shed light on the blind spots. And the other part to my job outside of STRI is traveling around to the installations and the users of all of the products that the team makes here. So I get to go out to the installations and interact with the soldiers, with the senior leaders, and actually get feedback about how the products are working to shape our force.
Sounds like there is a lot of travel that comes along with the job. Can you talk a little bit about what you're hearing in the field, at the combat training centers, and other locations when it comes to modeling and simulation technology?
Yes, there's a lot of energy out in the field right now about what's called next-gen constructive. There's a lot of questions out there about when are we going to have it, when is it coming out, what is it going to do, how does it tie into the synthetic training environment. Right. So there's a lot of people that are very interested in that element, as well as what's called STRI Live, Synthetic Training Environment Live. And that's where there's an increment of live training devices to fill a training gap that we've never been able to train for in the past. And we're talking hand grenades. So when you're doing force-on-force training, now they have a device that you can throw hand grenades and it works into the simulation system so that you can adjudicate properly using them tools. So there's hand grenades, there's claymores, which is an anti-personnel mine, there's stingers, which are anti-aircraft missiles. There's so much that the team is doing, and it all ties into what the field is doing and using.
Can you explain a little bit more about the next-gen constructive?
Yes, next-gen constructive is essentially going to be an upgrade to a current simulation that we have to train our brigade and above units on simulations for combat operations. An example of that would be as the commander is watching the battle unfold on the computer systems. He can see what's going on, and there's inputs that are put in by the computer that are going to stimulate and simulate actions of the units inside of the simulation. So it's going to drive the commanders to make decisions, and then they can critique the decisions afterwards in a constructive environment.
Thank you for explaining that. You work closely with senior enlisted counterparts across the Army. How did those relationships help you better serve the soldiers and shape the development of training technologies?
That's probably one of my favorite parts of the job is I get to go around to the installations and meet with the senior leaders and meet with the junior leaders. As the programs are fielding devices, they can get around there. And when they're interacting with the soldiers, I get around and talk with the senior leaders, and the soldiers. And them relationships make the soldier touch points better, because I'll talk to the senior leaders ahead of time, and then we can make sure that we have the right people for the soldier touch point, so we get the best feedback possible so that we can make the right product going forward. Because if we get the wrong feedback, then we could head down the wrong road.
Right. I heard you mention soldier touch points in our discussion just recently. Can you talk a little bit more in depth on what a soldier touch point is and why they're so important to the development and fielding process?
Yeah, so we'll get a requirement that says build something, and if we need to build that thing, our folks, our program, will start building it, whatever it is, and they'll get to a certain point. Once they get to there, they'll take it and show it to the soldiers, and the soldiers will give the feedback. Instead of, in the past, when we did a waterfall method, they would wait until everything was 100%, and then soldiers would see it, and they would say, hey, I hate this, I hate this, I hate this, or I don't like this, I don't like this, and I don't like this. And now, with the soldier touch points, early and often, the soldiers can drive the way the material is developed and actually enhance the end product. So, as an example for a soldier touch point, there was a soldier touch point right here in Orlando. We were working on TMT, the training management tool. And we had a battalion staff down here, and they were working through the tool, and at the same time, the engineers from the company that's on contract and the PM, all of the stakeholders were there. And as soon as the feedback was given to the team, they were changing things in real time so that the soldiers could see where their feedback was going and how it was impacting that training revolution. And to expound a little bit on the soldier touch point, the soldiers were talking about some of the user interface features and then some of the pieces that help them understand what's going on. So there was some videos created to help the soldiers, kind of like YouTube, on how to use the program. And a lot of that stuff was introduced due to the soldier touch points and the feedback that we were given.
Collaboration seems to be key here. One topic that I don't think gets enough attention here in Orlando is the collaboration that takes place between all the different services who are a part of Team Orlando. Can you talk a little bit about the work that goes on between the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marine Corps, and now even the Space Force?
Yes. I would say that if you look across any of the 260 programs within PEO STRI, or any of the programs that the Marines have, or the Navy, or Space Force, you're going to see lines, direct lines, or sublines that are connecting the programs. And at the 06 level, there's constant communication both with each other and out to industry, out in the greater Orlando area. And I can't think of a program where the teams are not working together day in and day out. So I can think of a couple of examples where the teams have worked together. One where the Navy and PEO STRI, namely PM Trade, have worked to monument one of the artillery pieces here as another showpiece for NSA Orlando. Another instance was just recently the Marine Corps moved a recruiting command down here, and they just moved in. And I've been collaborating back and forth with their senior enlisted advisor, helping get them established and integrated into the area. Both of these are examples of how Team Orlando comes together and helps the greater Orlando community.
That's a good example of collaboration. Switching gears just a little bit, we are about 4 months into the new administration with new senior leadership at the top of the Department of Defense and the Army. The priorities have shifted a little bit, and there seems to be a renewed focus on lethality, acquisition reform, and rapidly delivering capabilities to the troops. How is PEO STRI playing a role in these efforts?
This is a complicated answer, but I'll attempt to tackle it. So you can't spell readiness without PEO STRI.
That's true.
Every soldier that wears a uniform essentially uses the devices that we make, from Miles gear to large-scale simulations to simulators. Like there's a lot. And if you look at the Combat Training Center Instrumentation System, is one of the programs that builds readiness for our brigades. They rotate to each of the CTCs. There's 4 of them. There's the Joint Readiness Training Center, Joint Pacific Readiness Training Center, NTC, the National Training Center, and there's the Joint Multinational Readiness Center, JMRC. The CTCIS is really the backbone of each of the CTCs. And the CTCs, in my opinion, are the crown jewel of how we ready our Army. The brigades rotate through their OCs on the ground. The observer controllers really can see everything that's going on through the systems that are provided within the CTCIS. That's just lethality in itself right there, because the units are allowed to see themselves in a way that they couldn't see at home station. So that is one example of how PEO STRI is shaping readiness. Another example is the cyber world. We have a whole PM shop that's dedicated to cyber test and training. And the innovative approaches that they take in the cyber domain help us on a daily basis, as well as the testing. We couldn't test our new devices without some of the test products that are developed within Cyber Test and Training, or CT2.
The 2025 National Defense Strategy, NDS, prioritizes defending the U.S. homeland, deterring strategic actions, and deterring aggression with a focus on building a resilient joint force and defense ecosystem. It emphasizes deterring China in the Indo-Pacific while also increasing burden sharing with allies in Europe and around the globe. These are certainly challenging times. I know you can't comment specifically on any of our current military operations, but can you give some insight into leading soldiers during these times of uncertainty?
Absolutely. And I think leading through change and uncertainty is extremely difficult and it's hard. But the one thing that will ensure that our Army is maintaining its preeminence is training. Mm-hmm. And in the training domain, PEO STRI either develops, sustains, maintains, or introduces training devices that enable leaders to ensure that their units are ready. The difference between winning and losing is how ready you are. And I think PEO STRI, all of the teams, every program that I look across, if I look at CT2, or if I look at PM Trade, if I look at SE or TSO, each one of them are touching so many training devices that all of the soldiers use, and that training enables land dominance.
I believe you assumed your duties at PEO STRI in April of 2023, and later this fall, you'll be retiring after 28 years in the Army. Let's take a moment to reflect on your career. What has been the best part of being in the Army all of those years?
It's hands down the people. Like the reason I'm sitting here after 28 years is the people. It's definitely not for the problems. It's definitely not for the late phone calls. It's the people, the aha moments when people learn something, and the growth, the readiness, just the teamwork, the camaraderie, the sense of being is what's kept me here so long. And for me, one of the best parts is, one, being in this position and getting to see how much PEO STRI touches and impacts the entire total force. But one of the most special missions to me is resident here in PEO STRI and in my last unit, and it's called International Programs Office inside of PEO STRI, and it's a place called Security Assistance Training Management Organization was my last unit, and they deal with foreign military sales, FMS, and the profound impact that they have on each of the combatant commands. It's unmatched because for a small organization, they shape the way the combatant commands and the theaters are postured. Yeah, that mission is probably the most near and dear to my heart because of the outsized impact that they have. Another aspect that is really near and dear to my heart, which was really a pain in my butt when I was a younger soldier, is the sustainment piece. And then another cool aspect is how we sustain everything that we field, but not just locally in the CONUS locations. We have a global footprint where we sustain everything that we have abroad as well.
I don't want to ask about the worst part, but how about some of the challenges one faces during military service?
Challenges during military service, I guess, are adapting to new environments all the time. And for instance, when I came to PEO STRI, it was a steep learning curve. And there's a lot of very technical, very niche trained people here that are very, very good at what they do, versus what I'm used to and what I'm trained to do is the tactical side of things.
Right.
So the change makes us grow and learn as leaders. So I think it's a double-edged sword. I think it's very good for us, and it helps us grow into the positions. But change is the hardest one.
So, what's next for you after the Army? Have you decided yet?
I'm looking at retiring and getting back up to North Carolina and getting into instructional design.
Okay.
So instructional design kind of falls into the same wheelhouse as being an NCO in the Army, because you're really looking at training what are the needs and then how do you fill them gaps. So I was looking for grad school programs to go into, and I seen that program and it called to me like, hey, you should do this. So right now I'm in my last little bit of grad school, and I'll finish that, and then I plan to get into instructional design just because it's kind of close to what I do here.
Well, that sounds exciting. Now, they say everyone in an Army uniform is an Army recruiter. What advice would you offer someone who is considering military service? In particular, what would you tell someone that you wish someone had told you when you were considering the Army?
Do you want a chance to become the best version of yourself possible? And really, if you do, the Army is going to help you find that, or really the military. I think any branch is going to help people find the best version of themselves. Whether they stay for 3, 6, or 25 years, they'll grow immensely as a person and then come out better on the other end.
Specifically, what would you recommend to someone who wanted to get into modeling and simulation by following the military route?
I would say go to ROTC or one of the service academies and then get a commission. Go into the Army for a couple of years and then transition into either acquisitions or modeling and simulation. And then they can kind of touch it in acquisitions, but modeling and simulation, FA 57, a functional area, they would have to go through that pipeline.
We are about to kick off the summer of 2025, which includes a big event for the U.S. Army, not just in Orlando, but also around the country. Can you tell us about the Army's 250th birthday coming up in June?
Yes, this is a big year for the Army, 250 years. Locally, we'll be celebrating on the 21st with the Sunshine Chapter of AUSA. We'll have a ball. Just like many installations all around the country, they will have some type of ball or some type of celebration at each of the installation camp posts and stations. On the 13th, PEO STRI is doing a barbecue. And I'd like to take just a second and talk about how important the work that PEO STRI does. So if you look across the organization, you got men and women that are changing the way we train. They're revolutionizing current devices, all in the betterment of the Army. Our Army can't train and can't be as ready as it needs to be without the training devices that the men and women of PEO STRI make. The Army Transformation Initiative, or ATI, has 3 specific lines of effort, which are to deliver critical warfighting capabilities, optimize our force structure, and eliminate waste. And I believe that PEO STRI and all of the efforts, all of our people, lead directly into warfighting capabilities.
Before we sign off, where should our listeners go to find out more about PEO STRI and how your team is helping to support the warfighters?
You can find loads of information on all of our social media platforms, or you can go to our official website, peostri.army.mil.
Thank you. Our audience will be sure to check it out. For everyone listening, to stay up to date on future events in the modeling and simulation community, check out our website, teamorlando.org. You'll also find us on LinkedIn, X, and Facebook for more recent news and upcoming events. If you're interested in sponsoring an episode of AIM on MS&T or being a featured guest, please reach out to Team Orlando News. The link will be below. Again, I'd like to thank Sergeant Major Tom Dow for talking to us today. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to follow the AIM on MS&T podcast on your platform of choice, and we will see you in the next one. Bye!